Hello there. Welcome to Intercept CSA, the podcast, where we break harmful silence with truth, healing, and protection, one conversation at a time. I'm Inifon Samson, your host and guide for this conversation. Thank you for joining me. If you have parents or people caring for children around you, do make an extra effort to have them listening. Place your devices beside them, invite them to lean in. Every bit of awareness counts for children. Now, a gentle reminder before we go any further. This conversation might be triggering. Remember to breathe, pause, and do what feels safe to you before you return. Hello, welcome to the podcast. Last week we said we're going to talk about sibling sexual abuse today. Simply put, we're going to talk about what happens when a sibling is the one perpetrating harmful behavior towards another sibling. I should also add at this point that today our focus is on cases where both siblings are children, not when one is an adult and the other is a child. When an adult sibling abuses a child, that is still a case where sibling sexual abuse has happened, but it falls under intrafamilial sexual abuse. If you remember from our previous episode, that is sexual abuse within the family, intrafamilial sexual abuse. And in that case, it is handled differently from what I will outline in today's episode, which will focus on children abusing children, that is two siblings in a harmful sexual situation. So as somebody who has had the privilege to speak to children at different times and within those meetings to anchor a special Q&A segment where children can send in questions anonymously. This is the kind of place where you hear stories about sibling abuse. This is the kind of place where you hear somebody or you read a note and a child has said, I just want to say to you that this has been happening between a sibling and me, or this has been happening since I was 3, or can I talk to you afterwards about something personal? And in all of those meetings with these children, very rarely do I find that the child has disclosed to somebody else before this time or that time we're having that conversation, or that child has received any form of help. If there's been any disclosure, it's been between a friend and them, but no disclosure with somebody who could have given them help. And this case or this pattern of late disclosure is actually research backed. That is, studies have shown that sibling sexual abuse is one of the least likely forms of sexual abuse to be disclosed. Children are more likely to disclose abuse if it were to have come from a cousin, an uncle, or another adult family member, but rarely if it is a sibling. So it's treated almost, or this pattern matches the same pattern that you would find if a child was sexually assaulted or sexually abused by the father or by the mother. It's the same kind of late disclosure situation. In those kinds of cases too, children take a very long time, and understandably so. And I'm also going to share some reasons here why children do not disclose in the case of sibling sexual abuse, but understandably so. So what are some of those reasons? Number one, lack of awareness. There are a lot of children that in those situations who do not realize that what is happening is abuse. They don't realize that abuse is happening because the act has been presented as a game. It has been presented as something that they are sharing as siblings, or something that other siblings are doing, other siblings in other homes are doing. And so they don't realize that it's abuse. And what a child cannot recognize, a child cannot name. What a child cannot name, a child cannot report. Another reason why why late disclosures when it comes to sibling sexual abuse happens is due to shame and just the weight of the reality of what has happened. So for children that actually understand that this is wrong, they might not have all of the words, but for children that feel something in their heart just saying this is wrong, this should not have happened, they can feel overwhelmed. It can be too overwhelming for them to even find somebody to speak to, which then traps them in silence. It could also be fear of the sibling. They remember that I'm going to talk about how to differentiate this from normal exploratory behavior. But within abusive situations, there's always a form of manipulation, a form of coercion, and a form of power imbalance. Somebody is using the influence and the power that they have to exert themselves on the other person. And it's the same in sibling sexual abuse, even when it is amongst children. Remember, when we say children, is 0 to 18, so there's a wide variety of awareness, cognitive maturity. So the higher they go, especially for the older sibling who is perpetuating, the higher they go, the more options their minds create as to manipulation. So if the abusing sibling is somebody who withdraws affection and threatens them when they feel like they are no longer comfortable with this, I don't want this to happen, then they might not tell anybody. They might continue what is happening, allow the situation to continue, or be quiet about it because they don't want to lose that connection. It could also be threats. They could also be actively threatened. Maybe they sometimes threaten with very flimsy things. Flimsy, maybe you didn't do a chore around the house, but when you're a child, those things are not flimsy in your mind. Those things are big holes. And sometimes an older sibling who understands that you didn't wash plates or that you broke a cup 4 days ago and you didn't tell anybody is not a big deal. It would still utilize that information for manipulation, even though it's not such a big deal. Some children are also conflict avoidance. They naturally avoid conflicts. They naturally don't want to be the center of attention. And disclosure will bring attention, which means the child will not want to tell anybody because they are trying to avoid that. Some children also have difficulties expressing emotions. So even if they find something in themselves telling them that what is happening is wrong, they could find it too embarrassing or confusing to talk about. If a child also anticipates that you're going to be very angry about it, or you won't even believe them, or you will shame them, they may stay silent to also protect themselves emotionally. Apart from a child's personal processing of the situation, there are also home conditions like what is happening within the house, within their environment, that affects disclosure, that also contributes to this pattern of late disclosure. One of such is existing parental conflict or tension. So children are less likely to disclose if the house is already filled with fighting, with blame, with emotional distance. Children are less likely to disclose in those kind of situations. If you and your partner are already going through a divorce or already trying to navigate a separation or something major, or maybe there's another sibling who is ill, or just something is happening that already feels like a load upon the family, it might not be easy for this child to just wake up and disclose. They might feel as though they are adding to the problem that the house already has. It's an interesting mindset because you think, how would children think that far? But yes, remember, I'm still reminding you that we're dealing with 0 to 18. Some children might just feel it. They might not have all of this language as at 5, 6, but they might still feel like, I don't want to add to it. I don't want to distress anybody. It's just a feeling. They might not have all this language. But at 15, 13, 12, 10, a child is able to better synthesize information or break down the information and turn them to decisions, turn them to, I'm going to do this, or I'm not going to do this, and make choices at that level. Another home condition could be the presence of unequal treatment or favoritism. So if as a parent you already clearly favor one child, and sometimes in this case the harming sibling, the child who has been harmed might not be able to communicate abuse because they fear that you're going to trust the other sibling. Whatever the other sibling says is what you're going to take. So they might not. Another situation here is also very close to the first thing I said. A child might not want to also disclose because they are afraid of disrupting the family harmony. So in the first case, the child, there's already too much problem and the child doesn't want to contribute, doesn't want to add to the problem. In this other case, the house is very peaceful. Everything is fine. Everybody is in good condition. And the child does not want to disrupt what you have. Another situation is a previous negative response to disclosure. So if in the past a child has been dismissed. It may not have been over an issue of sexual abuse. It could have been that they experienced something and then they came to tell you and you didn't take them seriously. When sexual abuse happens between siblings or between when another sibling within the home harms them, they might not be able to come and tell you because they still have the memory of how you acted in a previous disclosure. It could have been disclosure about something they did in school and the school needed you to come in for it. That's a classic situation. I'm sure a lot of parents can relate with that one. School might have needed you to come in because maybe they hit a child and the child got injured and they saw how you reacted in that situation. It might form the basis for why they wouldn't want to talk about an abusive case in this other time. Another situation would be that there is no private space or private moment within your house. So children cannot find any time where you are not overwhelmed, where you are not packed up with every other sibling or with another family member or with an auntie. I know those kind of full houses. I grew up in that kind of place. Everywhere is full. There's almost no place and almost no time where you can really call somebody aside. And even if you wait to call somebody aside, there's almost always another eye looking at you and wondering what is the conversation there. And then this thought in your mind just thinking that when you're done, your mom or your dad or your sister or your sibling would need, whoever it is that you've spoken to, would need to give an explanation for why they have been extracted from the family moment and taken to a different place. So there also that a crowded, chaotic household can actually prevent even the bravest child from saying anything. Another very important condition that you should keep in mind as a reason for late disclosure of sibling sexual abuse is what kind of messages are there at home? Like what is said, whether it is what we have passed on as a result of this is just what has always been said, or what kind of religious messages, what ideas do they have about how God views situations like that? Do they think that they are irreparably broken? Do they feel like if they disclose this, like there's no path out of here and all of that? So depending on what they know about recovery, what they know about sin, what they know about different ideas, it could be very, very hard for them to get to the point of disclosure. So I'm going to get to practical moments. Let me not go ahead of myself. So let me differentiate normal exploration from abuse. If you listen to the last episode, you already have an idea of what I'm about to say now. So same with child on child sexual abuse. We had to talk about what is normal and what is not normal. And that's the same thing here. There is normal exploratory behavior between siblings. Two siblings can come together and act out something in a mutual and developmentally appropriate way. Doesn't mean it is right. What I'm talking about is that both of them, nobody influenced the other person per se. The other person fully understood what was happening. The other person also knew that they could leave at any point if they wanted to. I remember that we said the reason we need to have an understanding of the difference is because a situation of harm needs a different response from a situation of exploration. In one, you need to really sit them down, help guide them, let them know what has happened there and why something like that cannot happen again in that context. And then the other case, you need intervention, you need prevention, you need healing. Is a lot more robust than this other situation. So normal sexual exploration, like we shared in last episode amongst children, would usually occur between children of similar ages. It will be brief, it will be occasional, it will base itself off of curiosity. It will be more about them learning their bodies than causing harm. It might have been that one of them learned something in biology today. Biology, yes. Between 0 and 18, they would be able to have biology. Or one of them learned something in integrated science. Or one of them learned something in a social studies class and came home and said, oh, let me see your breast. And this other person opens up and then they begin to touch and all of those things. Those are normal exploratory behavior. Children are very curious. That can happen. But it would be brief, it would be occasional, and it will be based off of curiosity. Normal sexual exploration amongst children is also a situation where both children can stop voluntarily. Both children can pull out at any point. Nobody feels threatened and nobody is afraid. many times too, after all of that happens, the two children would have a conversation about it. There is a flow. There is no tension. There is no we are trying to hide something deliberately. And so it's even a situation where you likely walk in on them because they are probably trying to do something that in their minds they just think is a very, very innocent thing. But in the case of abusive behavior between siblings, this one involves power. It involves one child exercising power. That is, power is the ability to influence over the other person. There is also going to be a form of coercion or force, excuse me, or manipulation, like we've been talking about. So one child is forcing, one child is threatening, or one child is pressuring the other child. It is also going to happen repeatedly. It's going to happen persistently. It's not going to be a one-time curious activity. It will also involve more sexualized action or sexualized action that are not age appropriate for either of the siblings. It's not something a child would just find out on their own. It's not something two children will come together and just do. It will look like something that is acted out. It will look like something that they are trying to recreate or something like that. It will also bring shame. It will bring fear. It will bring guilt and emotional distress on the other child who is being harmed. The abusing child, the harming child may also threaten the sibling not to tell or manipulate them into thinking that it is their fault or it is a normal thing. So remember that in the case of curiosity or accidental touching, those are normal. It is normal if it is mutual, brief, and there's no fear or harm, or there's no fear of harm. But in any case where you find persistent, coercive, or frightening behavior, that is abuse, and that kind of situation requires intervention. So even when a child does not talk, because you've talked about late disclosure, even when a child does not talk, there are some signs to watch out for. There's some signs to watch out for. One of such signs is the child. Let's start here. You know the child that you had, and you know the child. So that's the place where observation and presence is very important, because it is in the place of presence where you'll be able to tell that something is different. Is mindfulness, intentional mindfulness, that you're able to tell that something is different from the child I knew when she was 1, or the child I knew when she was 2, with the child that shows up now. And I always say that assumption is one of the things that kills our ability to perceive. When you look at something and you've already assumed that you know why, especially as your children cross into adolescence, you wake up and you see a child has changed dramatically or drastically. It's very easy to say, hey, I know, you've become big, you've started joining people in school, you started doing things, but you don't get any information from assumption. Assumption has not delivered any information to you. What you should rather do is have a conversation, pay extra attention, give it a little time, because sometimes there's more to the situation than whatever you think you may know about what is happening. So there are some signs to watch out for. You watch out for sudden withdrawal. A child that suddenly withdraws into themselves. They used to be bubbly, different, more spirited. All of a sudden, they are just different. Sometimes it could just be stress at school. Sometimes it could just be that they are going through a hard time over something else. But this is when conversation is important, continued watching is important, to be sure and to at least rule out that possibility. There's also aggression. Aggression is also a sign to watch out for. Sometimes aggression is a subtle way of a child saying, nobody is seeing me, nobody is hearing me, and I'm tired of walking around like a shadow. Sometimes that's just what aggression is saying. So watch out for aggression. Don't react. Pay attention. Plan out and strategize a proper response, and that response includes listening. Your response is wrong if it does not have a point where that child is able to speak back, that child is able to say what is possibly the situation. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be, I called you and I asked you, didn't say anything, that means you don't have a problem. It's the kind of things that we would do as African or Nigerian parents, because I'm Nigerian and I've only had a Nigerian experience. But and the kind of things we'll say to a child. I asked you yesterday, you said you were fine. It means you don't have a problem. Sometimes it will take more than one asking, more than two asking. more than 5 askings, more than 1 month. So give it time, actually pay a lot of attention, and you may find what that is driving toward. Also, pay attention to if a sibling becomes unnecessarily avoidant of the other sibling. It's not that there's any problem that they are having, or you heard them squabble about something. All of a sudden, this person is just avoidant of the other sibling. You ask them, go and do this with that person. Say, I don't want to. I don't want to have a proper conversation. Take them out from where everybody else is and actually have a conversation. Don't ask pointedly. Don't say, is something happening between your sibling and you in this sexual regard? Just ask a question. Be curious enough about something. Are you going through something? Something going? Is there anything you want to tell me that's making you uncomfortable? If at the end of the day you don't say anything, it's a good time to reassure them that you love them. Your love for them will never change. They can come to you with anything, and you will be able to handle it. Another thing is anxiety. I'm just going to go through this. Anxiety, sadness, shame. So if you notice anxiety, you notice sadness, you notice shame, unusual shameful behavior, not just shyness, not just reservedness, but shame, guilt, that maybe something happens at home or they make a mistake and the way that they react to it is disproportionate to that mistake. It's almost like they hit themselves an extra blow for what has happened. It sometimes could be a pointer. It sometimes could be a child wrestling with the reality that they are failing, that abuse is already happening, and now they're also failing in school. So it just seems like everything is falling apart. So pay attention to that too. Age inappropriate sexualized behavior or curiosity could also be a sign that a younger child has been exposed to harm. So if you start to see, maybe you carry a child that didn't used to behave like that, and all of a sudden they are touching you inappropriately, or they are doing things, because especially when the children are very young, they might not be able to distinguish at what point the behavior they've been taught should come out. So you pay attention without accusation. We pay attention and just follow the trail. Follow the trail. Another thing is reluctance to be alone with that sibling, or sudden secretive behavior between that sibling and this other person. So those are behaviors to watch out for. And generally, some of these behaviors that you're going to experience uniquely with your child may not be something anybody is able to list in any manual. It would depend on your ability to be present in your home, not just present in the body, mindfully present, such that you're able to tell and you're able to sense when things shift in your space. So yeah, there are some practical tips or practical steps that every parent or caregiver can take to prevent sibling sexual abuse. And one of such is to set clear boundaries around privacy, touching, and personal space. Set clear boundaries, teach them early. Nobody touches your private areas. Your entire body is private and can be private at any time that you want it, and can be private to anybody that you want it to be private from. So even if it's a sibling, at any point that you're not comfortable, you can tell the other person, I'm no longer comfortable with what you're doing, or I'm not comfortable with how you're touching me, and I don't want it to happen anymore. So place everybody on the table, from their father, their mother, to everybody, that they are allowed at any point to say, Mommy, please do not grab my hand. I don't feel comfortable at this point. They are allowed to say that. It's also important that you let them know that there are situations that even if they say that, I used to say there are some things that are called life saving. When I'm talking to people about force feeding, and I like to add that, for example, I don't believe in force feeding, but there are situations where a child might not be as willing to eat, that you would still need to give them food by some measure, because right now it's between life and death. Is either they eat or they will no longer be available in this life. So at that point, it has gone from, this is just a thing of convenience for me, like I'm going to force feed you because I cannot afford to play around and get you to a place where you are ready for food, to right now I have done everything I can do, and you are at risk of ulcer, you're at risk of falling ill, or you have medication that you have taken and it is fast synthesizing in your body and you have not taken anything. So there are also those situations that you want to let your child know, especially when they're younger. If mommy needs to change your diaper and you're running around, I'm going to grab you and I'm going to state exactly what I'm doing. And so you can also mention what those particular situations are, like diaper change, like food time, like when you're trying to cross the road and you have to grab their arm, even though at that point, I trust children to want to say at that point that you cannot grab me. So for little children, you can also bring that. So you want to set clear boundaries within your home on privacy, on touching and personal space. Also talk openly about what behaviors are appropriate and what behaviors are not appropriate between siblings. Take time in age appropriate ways to explain what appropriate behavior is and inappropriate behavior between siblings. Check into regularly with each child individually. Make time as much as possible. If you can, create like a weekly or a monthly date where everybody has different times that they get to spend with you, whether as a father or a mother, where they have individual times with you. And in those meetings, ask this simple question: is anyone doing something that makes you uncomfortable? Is anyone doing something that makes you uncomfortable? Also monitor exposure to sexualized media, especially the older children get, even when they are very young. Monitor what they have access to, because many of these sibling and child on child situations are actually from exposure. This child has seen something, this child has been exposed to something, and now they are acting it out. And when it comes to pornography, I would advise that you have a separate, definite conversation or distinct conversation about pornography. Let children know that they, at some point in their lives, they are going to encounter something like this. They're going to encounter, maybe someone is going to try to show them somebody that is completely nude or something. In age appropriate ways, this will come up on our platform so that you can see how to speak to children about pornography, something we're going to put up this week or next week. Have that conversation early. Also let children know that if at any point they're exposed to this explicit material that you've told them about, they can come to you with it, that you are open, you're here. Define your role in a child's life as a guide. Define your role in a child's life as a guide. Help children to understand that you are here to help them not just avoid mistakes, but you're here to make sure that even if they make mistakes, they don't stay in their place of mistakes. So you want to put yourself in your child's cycle, in your child's life, as a life guide. So at any point, you can tell this child, if at any point after everything I've told you about this subject, you still encounter it, you can come back to me. You can let me know that this has happened, that you have seen it somewhere, that someone has shown you. You take them through the harm of addiction. And then for children that are older, from 12, 13, 14, if there's a clean documentary on what someone would experience, or an addictive person, someone who has recovered from addiction, just sharing their experience, you can be in the room while they watch that and guide them through that person's experience. So you watch it beforehand so that you know as to how much explicitness or explicit language is involved in the documentary, and then take time to take them through addiction through someone else's lenses, and then take them through that, and then let them know that at any point, that number one, help them to learn how to prevent even getting to the point where they've seen something. Let them also know if they ever see something, they come to you. If they see something, watch it, form a habit around it, and eventually they find that they cannot stop, they should also still come back to you. So you're going through 3 different layers of protection: the prevention level, the level where they've had their earliest exposure, and then the level where definitely they've possibly seen it, they've been unable, they've seen it maybe 2-3 times, they are unable to stop. Even if they are able to stop, let them know that even if, because guilt kicks in, a child feels, if I've already seen it once, why should I come tell you if I've gone twice, thrice, 4 times? Tell them at any point, whether you've seen it 10 times or not, remember that I am always here. You can break the loop of silence, or the cycle of silence, at any point, and come back home, and come back to me, and come and tell me that thing you told me not to look at, or that thing that you told me about at this particular time, and have the conversation frequently, so that there's always an open door for conversation, or for the child to bring it up. Have the conversation frequently. have it when they are 10, have it when they are 5 in age appropriate ways, have it as often as possible. So there are different places, different portals where the child can jump in through and say, okay, that thing you told me has happened and this is where I am in that process. I'm taking time with pornography because it is at the heart of sibling sexual abuse. It is at the heart of the kind of exposure that brings children to that place of harmful sexual behavior. Teach everybody in the house that their bodies belong to them and they have the right to say no if someone crosses a boundary. Their bodies are exclusive from even their siblings. Also, having children that are sleeping, co-sleeping, especially when children of two different genders are sleeping together, is a risk point. Having two children, one person is 6 years older and the other person is far younger, having the same bed space is not very safe. So if you can separate them, it will be very, very helpful to curb the possibility that one child has been exposed to something and would now have ample time with another child to experiment or to reenact whatever it is that they've been exposed to. Another thing that you want to be mindful of is we easily leave, just like in the case of child sexual abuse, we easily leave children to themselves. So even in the case of siblings, from time to time, keep the same open door policy. Leave your doors open if they're spending time together. You come from time to time, whether it's to come offer water or to come just say, what's going on, how you guys doing, I just came to check on you. Find ways to create subtle interruption to be available. But communication is your best bet. You cannot always see everything that there is to see about harm, but if you leave the door of communication open, if you raise awareness early, you are in a better position to intercept sexual abuse between siblings or any kind of sexual abuse. When it comes to intervention, the process is the same as when disclosure happens, normal disclosure happens. So when a child comes and tells you that something like this has happened, as much as possible, stay calm. Remember that sometimes we are quiet, but our faces are not quiet. So remember to manage your facial expression because your child is taking in the whole of you. So stay calm, listen without judgment. Don't say, why didn't you come to me with this sooner? How long did it start? And they say 3 years ago, and you say, how am I just hearing this? As much as possible, this is why we have this podcast, so that you have this early exposure to the information, early exposure to the possibility. That way you walk into the situation reminding yourself that you have been prepared for this moment. So keep it in mind that your whole self is taken in as the child is speaking. And remember when we talked about disclosures in the disclosure series, I meant to say that children test the water first. So if they've come to you and said one thing, it's most likely that that is one of 100 things that they are just beginning to tell you. So how you respond at that very first point of listening determines a whole lot. It determines a whole lot. So listen without judgment and avoid blaming the child. From the minute you receive disclosure, separate the siblings if they were in situations like the co-sleeping I talked about. Separate the siblings safely and then begin to assess other situations or other conditions that bring them together into the risk moments, like moments that are uninterruptible, moments that are unobservable. Assess the situation and still create that separation. Seek professional help from child psychologists, counselors, or other services that offer professional help for that regard. This is very, very important because remember I said that sibling sexual abuse has the same pattern, the kind of impact that has been noticed when parental figures are involved in sexual abuse, and is understandable because I know we say that harm comes from inside most of the times, but this is the inside of the inside. This is a sibling. This is not somebody that you can say we are moving homes and you will never see this person again. This is not somebody that you can separate forever. So they need to get from the point of we've separated to heal and to intervene to back to the recovery that is necessary, to the restoration that is necessary for the family, to actually also hearing this harmed sibling fully, so that in the bid, because sometimes as parents, in the bid to bring back everybody to a place of peace, it's easy to either rush this other person's healing process and minimize the harm that this other person has created. So it's a very delicate situation, and it's also too close to home for you to try to manage it on your own. It's too close to your heart, it's too close to your emotions. So it's important that if you can bring, it's important that you bring a counselor into the mix. It's important that you bring a professional to help navigate that process, so that it does not become something that a band-aid is just simply put on it, and then in the future something disintegrates because it was not properly done. So please avoid handling it entirely within the family without any form of guidance or professional intervention. Also, document what you observe. Document what you observe. And many times when a disclosure like that happens, you begin to draw certain lines. By certain lines, like all of a sudden you begin to put things together. Things that didn't make sense will suddenly make sense. So note all of those things down, because it could help the therapist, it could also help the counselor, it could help to it could help to also juggle, especially when it's something that has taken time. It could help to form the story of this younger child fully, for every other person who needs to help in the process to be able to see the scope of the harm. So a child that has probably been harmed since they were maybe 3, the things that have started to come back to your memory would help the other person to understand what exactly happened here. What are the behaviors what are the signs that this person showed, this other younger child showed, even if he or she might not be able to remember them now because they were far younger when the signs were showing. You can say, okay, I remember at this time, I noticed this behavior, I noticed this behavior, I noticed this here. And all of that is going to help the person who is delivering this help. So the process might not be as easy as, maybe if it was not easy, it might not be as fast, or both easy and faster for lack of better words, but it's a longer road because of the level of relationship that is involved. So throughout the healing process, just be an emotional support and receive emotional support for yourself too. I said that during the disclosure series, you too have been hit by something very, very serious, or with something very serious. Receive emotional support for yourself. If you have a leader, a religious leader, or somebody, a friend, a cousin, someone that you can trust to hold your hand through the process, lean on your partner. Both of you could also explore professional help for yourself as well, but you need to be strong to bring strength or to give support to the child. But this child needs a lot of emotional support, especially as counseling begins to happen, as they begin to fully grasp the weight of the thing that has occurred or the thing that has happened to them. They need all the support that they can get. Also, restore trust and safety within the home. Look again, where did anything go wrong? What happened? Work with the child who initiated the harming child, the child who perpetrated the harm. Work with them softly, let them guide you through how these things happened. And then that will also open your eyes to see where the gaps are in your home, where is the loophole, at what point did these things occur. So also listen even to the child who is narrating his or her experiences throughout that process. You're also listening for information so that you can bring back safety. And this safety is not just emotional now, it's physical safety. Bring back safety to the house, bring back safety to the home. Also listen for when they are trying to explain why they couldn't tell anybody as at when it first began, so that you also know where are the loopholes emotionally within the house. It's a moment for gathering information as much as possible so that you don't have another situation, especially if you have other siblings within the home. That it has happened once does not mean that everybody has taken note, or that it can only happen once. So you want to be sure that even when everything is done and everybody returns and the house is back to normal, that it doesn't happen again. So teach both children coping strategies, help them to implement whatever it is that they've learned from the professional who is guiding them through the process. Also address exposure to pornography or sexualized content without shaming the child, that is the harming child, both of them, because in most cases the other child has also introduced the other child to it. So address that, work together with the professional, be available to see how all of those things come together. So this is where we are going to bring everything to a close. I think we've done a lot for a basis, or for the basics today. And before you go, I want to give you an everyday interception point for this week. I want you to take one simple action with a child in your care this week. Take some time, set aside a time, set aside a place, a quiet place, and ask that child an open-ended question. And I'll give you the question now. Ask them, has anything happened that made you feel uncomfortable? I would not recommend that this should be the very first question you should ask the child once they've sat down. I recommend that when you've drawn them to yourself, the first question you want to ask them, how are they doing? Make a light joke about something, laugh about something else, compliment something about them. Talking about parents now and caregivers, compliment something about them, and then slowly ease into this. Listen to what they want to talk about. Because many times when you create an opportunity, children have what they already have in mind that they have been waiting for an opportunity to talk about. So listen to them and know what it is they want to talk about. Hear them fully. Maybe towards the end, at some point, just be alert to it. Just insert this question. I just wanted to ask you, has anything happened that made you feel uncomfortable? Remember, even if they say nothing has happened, take the time to reassure them of your love. Take the time to tell them that you're always here. Nothing they do will ever change your love for them. Nothing that happens will ever change anything. And at any point that they have something to say, that you will believe them fully, and you're going to do your best to make sure that they are fine. Going to do your best to make sure. Take time to tell them that in life things happen, and sometimes good things happen and sometimes bad things happen. Your role in their lives is to guide them, that despite the bad, despite the good, they end up strong, whole children or adults in the future. You want to take that time to put all of those things together, even if they say nothing has happened. Because many times children need more than that one experience to finally get to the place where they trust you. Because especially when it comes to parenting, there's almost always a dissonance between the things that we say to children and the ways that we live with them in everyday reality. So in addition to that action, be extra conscious about how you live and interact with your children. If you say you can always talk to me and they break a plate and you rain down fire and the whole house, nobody can stand or breathe, it's not going to make any sense. It won't be believable when you say you can tell me anything, because you have not shown you can be told anything. So you want to, in your day-to-day actions, show that you can be told something. You want to be the kind of father that when you walk into the house, everybody doesn't run away. That is how, when you say you can tell me anything, it feels believable. If you say you can tell me anything and you are somebody that is terrifying, it doesn't add up. So you don't want to have a split personality.